Regional Planning Governing Board meeting for February 9th with a roll call.
All right. Ed Lawson,
Here.
Devin Reese,
Here.
Donald Abbott,
Here.
Jenny Breckus, Mike Clark, absent, Naomi Dewar,
Here.
Vaughn Hartung, also absent, Jean Herman, Kathleen Taylor,
Here.
Diane Vanderwell,
Here.
and non-voting member Beth Smith.
Here.
All right, we have a quorum.
Okay, let's do the salute to the flag. Beth, will you? I've got. Motion by Mr. Reese, second by Ms. Vanderwell. Although any further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Carries unanimously. Looking for an approval of the minutes.
Move to approve. Second.
Got a motion by Vanderwell, a second by Dewar. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right, move on to public comment. Mr. Clerk, do we have any public comment?
We have not received any public comment.
Anyone in the public wishing to speak at this time? I don't see much public out there. All right, business of the day. 6A, resolution of appreciation for the services of Bonnie Weber as a member of the RPGB. Come on up here, Bonnie, so we can really embarrass you. And Jeremy's going to read your proclamation.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. It'd be my pleasure to read this into the record. It's resolution number 23-01 of the RPGB. It's a resolution of appreciation for the services of Bonnie Weber, 2018 to 2022 Regional Planning Governing Board. So whereas Bonnie Weber, as a representative of the City of Reno, has been a member of the Regional Planning Governing Board since December 2018, and whereas Bonnie Weber has also served on the RPGB as a representative of the Washoe County from 2003 to 2014, and whereas Bonnie Weber thoughtfully worked through various regional topics, including the Regional Plan Update, Natural Resources Plan, 2020 and 2022 Consensus Forecast adoptions, and multiple Truckee Meadows annual reports, and whereas Bonnie Weber supported increasing land use diversity in the North Valleys to promote a more balanced availability of services and amenities for residents in that part of our region, and whereas Bonnie Weber's support of the regional planning and TMRPA staff was always clearly articulated in her insight and perspective provided during RPGB meetings, and whereas Bonnie Weber consistently and effectively exercised her responsibilities as a member of the Regional Planning Governing Board calmly, fairly, and efficiently with clear direction, respect for staff, and a commitment to the benefits of regional planning, and whereas Bonnie Weber further engaged while serving on the RPGB for a second stint to develop a deeper understanding of the Truckee Meadows Regional Plan and the implementation of new concepts such as regional land designations and facility and service standards. And whereas Bonnie Weber may very well have set the record for total service time on the RPGB of approximately 15 years, during which time she served twice as chair in July 2003 to August of 2004 and from August 2012 to August 2013. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Regional Planning Governing Board does hereby extend its sincere appreciation to Bonnie Weber for serving as a member of the Regional Planning Governing Board and for her countless hours of public service on behalf of the citizens of the Truckee Meadows. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's so good to be here and to see each of you. Many of you I've worked with for a while, and I just want to say thank you for the opportunity to even be here and for recognizing the service. And so I just want to say thank you so much. I miss y'all, but we move on, right? And so just thank you. Appreciate it. And thank you for, I want to just say one thing. I think I really was on 16 years. It went through all the way through 2014 because I had to do that as part of the district for county commission, right? So it was 16 years. However, in all that time, there were quite a few directors. And I want to just say to Jeremy, and I think all of you agree, that Jeremy has worked his way up and is doing an excellent job. And I just want to say thank you to Jeremy because you keep doing that great job. And I'm not going to even cry. Thank you so much.
Hold on, don't go away. Mr. Reese.
Ms. Weber, first of all, thank you for being here. It is an honor to have you back in chambers. I haven't seen you enough, and so I'm excited to see you today. I just want to express my sincere gratitude. 16 years, I know that to some seems like a short time, some too long. Probably you felt both of those feelings, but I think what I think about is the way in which our region has changed. And you had the grace and dignity to serve on two different bodies over that period of time and really saw it from a lot of different perspectives. You saw lots of different leaders of organizations, lots of colleagues come and go. And that's really the kind of perspective that I think in a regional planning approach really is helpful because you can't replicate the experience. So I'm happy that you are enjoying yourself, and I hope you and your husband are enjoying the time to connect with one another and your family as well. But know that you're missed and well loved. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Anyone else?
Yeah, Mr.
Ms.
Chair.
Stewart.
I just want to thank you so much, Bonnie. Thank you for your service. It is truly remarkable.
Thank you, Naomi. Appreciate it.
Anyone else? Well, Bonnie, I think I'm going to tie you for 16 years.
Oh, yay, yeah.
Yeah, it'll be 16 years for me too. But you've been invaluable to all this, and you've been a great comrade and to help with keeping perspective in here. And so, thank you. I wish you the best in your next life, and enjoy.
The next season, right?
Yes.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Okay, let's go to 6B, Resolution of Appreciation for Service of Alexis Hill
Mr.
as
Chair.
member of the RPGB.
Mr. Chair, Jessica Pruney for the record. I believe you need to take action to approve the resolution.
What kind of action would you like?
Move to accept.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nobody. Okay. Look, I got to give Jessica a hard time.
Thanks, Jessica, for keeping us on the straight and narrow. So thank you, Jeremy Smith, for the record. Now we have a resolution of appreciation, item 6B, for Alexis Hill. This is resolution number 23-02. As I said, resolution of appreciation for the services of Alexis Hill. Whereas Alexis Hill, as a representative of Washoe County, has been a member of the Regional Planning Governing Board since February 2021. And whereas Alexis Hill thoughtfully worked through various regional topics, including the Natural Resources Plan, 2022 Consensus Forecast Adoption, and Truckee Meadows Annual Report. And whereas Alexis Hill's support of regional planning and TMRPA staff was always clearly articulated in her insight and perspective provided during RPGB meetings. And whereas Alexis Hill consistently and thoughtfully brought her passion for the welfare of our community by seeking to ensure affordable housing strategies and implementations were supported. And whereas Alexis Hill consistently and effectively exercised her responsibilities as a member of the RPGB calmly, fairly, and efficiently with clear direction, respect for staff, and a commitment to the benefits of regional planning. And whereas, though her time serving on the RPGB has been limited to 2 years, Alexis Hill has long served the region in a policy and planning capacity at both the City of Sparks and City of Reno. And whereas Alexis Hill engaged with staff to develop a deeper understanding of the Truckee Meadows Regional Plan and the implementation of new concepts such as regional land designations and facility and services standards. And whereas Alexis Hill deftly managed her duties and responsibilities on the RPGB while also navigating the time and responsibilities of starting a new family. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Regional Planning Governing Board does hereby extend its sincere appreciation to Alexis Hill for serving as a member of the Regional Planning Governing Board and for her countless hours of public service on behalf of the citizens of the Truckee Meadows. Thank you.
Thank you. I had a lot of fun on the Regional Planning Board, and I think that there's a lot of great work still to to be done. And I know that this board is going to do that work. I'm really excited to watch y'all tackle it. I'm here to support. And I know that Commissioner Clark will be a great representative for Washoe County. And I'll miss you all. And I hope to be back at another stint. So please let me know if you need anything. And I will say, the region has been working together so well, and I'm so impressed. And that's the leadership of this board. And I think that the community should be very excited about the future of the region. So thank you for the leadership and the staff. It's been a joy. Thank you, Jeremy.
Anyone? Mr. Reese, he's a lawyer.
I know, the gift of gab, but I wouldn't want you to come back to the building and not know that we extend, of course, our sincere appreciation for the time you served on this body. And like you said, I do think that there are different seasons, and my guess is at some point in time, you and your colleagues will have you back here. And we all move around on the boards, of course, and try to find our way. But you were very gracious to me in my time on the board, helping me to navigate some of the policy issues that we've done. So, and you and I have a bunch of other boards we're serving on now. So it's always good to see you. And thanks for your service.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Thanks, Alexis. It was a pleasure working with you for those 2 years. It's a pleasure working with you still and everything else. To not have you here is not a big
You're not
loss
done with me.
because we're working on so many other things together. Like sitting in traffic on I-80 for an hour and a half, trying to get back to Sparks.
We're going to build that
And
road.
a Sparks lady too, so it can't be all bad.
Exactly.
So,
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And good luck, everyone. Thanks.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve the resolution.
Thank you. Got a motion
Second.
and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. 6C, presentation, discussion, possible direction of staff regarding annexation, land, and sphere of influence of City of Reno and City of Sparks.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have a short presentation from Nate Kusha.
Thank you. Good evening, or good afternoon, members of the board. Nate Kusha, Team RPA, for the record. So you guys requested us to go away and do some more analysis and bring some information back on annexations and the sphere of influence as it relates to the City of Reno and City of Sparks. So that's what we're here to do. So just to start off, there are two paths to annexation to annex lands into either of the cities that's set forth in state law. First, the areas within a city's sphere of influence, or SOI, are eligible for annexation based on the processes covered in NRS 268.610 through 668. And that is through the program of annexation. So a program of annexation defines areas within the SOI that are intended to be annexed into a jurisdiction in a 7-year time frame. So each city's annexation program must be reviewed and approved by the Regional Planning Commission for conformance with the regional plan. Currently, both of the programs of annexations for both cities have expired. Thus, it has been the practice of TMRPA that the de facto annexation program for each city is no planned annexations. The second path to annexation, as many of you know, just touch on it briefly, is what's called 670 annexations colloquially. That's NRS 268.670. And this allows for annexation of unincorporated areas to contiguous city if 100% of the landowners of the subject area are in agreement. And this is even if the areas are not included in a program of annexation. Regional planning has no purview over these private property annexations described under this section of NRS. So just to kind of summarize, the top is the program of annexation, annexations. Regional planning has purview over that by seeing the programs of annexations. The 670s, we have no program. It's kind of the regional planning versus private property owner annexations. So further describing kind of these concepts, there is the sphere of influence, which most of you hope they're familiar with. The city's SOI is designated within the regional plan, and it shows the potential areas into which a city plans to expand within the 20-year time horizon of the regional plan. A comprehensive review of the City of Sparks SOI was conducted during the update of the 2019 regional plan, and several areas were identified and removed from the City of Sparks SOI. The City of Sparks identified that they had no intent to annex these areas, thus we took them out. After discussions with staff at the City of Reno, a similar review of their SOI land is planned to coincide with the 2024 update of the regional plan. Finally, some more terminology. We have our extraterritorial jurisdiction, or ETJ. So the ETJ delineates planning and/or enforcement authority within the SOI, operates differently based on individual local agreements, one between Washoe County and the City of Reno, and one between Washoe County and the City of Sparks. It is our understanding that the interlocal between Sparks and Washoe County designates the entire Sparks sphere of influence area as ETJ, while in Reno there is a small area in the southeast of the City of Reno SOI that is not covered by the ETJ agreement. As the ETJ applies to land within the SOI for each jurisdiction, any lands annexed outside of the SOI would require a master plan amendment to establish the corresponding jurisdiction's master plan land use on the proposed site, thus necessitating a conformance review and decision by the Regional Planning Commission. So therefore, when it comes to annexation, regional planning will really see the annexed areas in some fashion, whether it's through the conformance of the annexation or the programs of annexation, or if it's not in the programs of annexation and it goes down maybe a 670 annexation route, we would see it still to establish that master plan land use, and that would be seen by the Regional Planning Commission. So moving on to some of the analysis we did. This is a table showing the City of Reno annexations from 2010 to 2021, as well as the City of Sparks. Real quick, I do want to note, Ms. Breckus did point out that Westview Estates is actually on here listed twice, in 2020 and 2016. That 2016 Westview Estates annexation is a mistake. That should not be there. It was just in 2020, so I wanted to highlight that real quick. It is 81 acres that we would have to adjust the numbers. As you'll see soon in the analysis when we go over the kind of percentages and numbers, it won't change it significantly because there are so many acreage. So we have not been specifically tracking annexations at Team RPA. However, we did work with city staff from both City of Sparks and the City of Reno to reconstruct annexations since 2010 based on available information. City of Reno provided us a table of annexation research that they had done. And for the City of Sparks, we went through the annual reports that are required by the jurisdictions to send to Team RPA every year. And we went back to 2010 and annexations were included in there. In addition to this, we did do a high-level analysis in GIS with available data, which output really kind of mimicked what was provided from the jurisdictions. So we felt pretty confident in what we had. There might be a few things missing here or there, but the overall acreages and numbers are very similar to if we did a more detailed analysis, which would, of course, have to go parcel by parcel and take quite a bit more time for staff. So with that, go over some of the kind of results that we got. So since 2010, the City of Reno has executed about 670 annexations, totaling roughly 3,860 acres. And that amounts to a total of 5% increase in total land area for the City of Reno. And again, that's since 2010. So of that, the majority occurred in the City of Reno's SOI, about 3/4 of the annexations, while 1/4 being outside of the SOI. It's about 950 acres. And that, as you can see on the map there, that's kind of in most of that anyways. The significant chunk is in Lemon Valley in the north there. That's that kind of tealy, light teal color there on the map. And roughly 82 acres were identified in the City of Reno's annexation program of that total acreage that was annexed. Moving on to the City of Sparks. Since 2010, we have about 9 of those 670 annexations. And that totals to about 501 acres. And 35 of those acres were annexed outside of the city's SOI. That's that small purple square you can see in the kind of northwest there. And that was actually post the 2019 regional plan update. That was a small addition to the quarry development out there that we processed. Additionally, the City of Sparks also de-annexed 2 sites back in 2010 of roughly 405 acres, and this was associated to another rollback of the city's SOI in the East Truckee Canyon. That's that kind of large blue area out there to the east in the East Truckee Canyon. So when that de-annexation is taken into account, the total annexed area or addition to the City of Sparks land area since 2010 comes to about 0.4% increase to the City of Sparks. And to the best of our knowledge, none of these annexations since 2010 occurred in the City of Sparks' previously adopted program of annexation. So, With that, I'm going to turn it over to Director Smith.
Thanks, sir. Thank you, Nate. Jeremy Smith for the record. I think at this point, where we'd like to go is we'd like to hear from the board, and we're seeking direction on if there are next steps required to pursue along this line of inquiry. We are definitely planning to address the Reno SOI during the update, which I think would bring it to that commensurate level with what we achieved with Sparks. But we're just curious to hear to what degree you'd like us to continue to go down this research path. I will add one more thing, is that doing this research we've begun to build a pretty decent record of where annexations have occurred, and we plan to add that as a statistic to the annual report. So that'll show up now in the next annual report on our website.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Ms. Stewart.
Yeah, first of all, I want to say, I think it's a really good exercise to have this tracked, because it's a great job for you all, kind of in the global scope. I was wondering, you mentioned a area in southeast Reno that was not part of the extraterritorial jurisdiction, is what I recall you saying. Could you explain that?
Correct. Yeah, I believe it's the Dolan properties down in the southeast section of the Reno sphere that the interlocal agreement for the extraterritorial jurisdiction between City of Reno and Washoe County does not cover that specific area.
So what does that mean?
So I believe that means for that interlocal that the current land uses on that SOI are actually Washoe County master plan land uses,
Right.
and not City of Reno land uses.
Right. Okay. So when you say, I've been working with the Dolans on a lot of different properties, and they have several, and is this a bigger chunk? Is this the
Yeah, if we can bring the
40s,
map
Virginia
back,
40s or something? Or
we can show you kind of where this is.
And I didn't know, what does it mean going forward? I mean, if they ask, they can't ask for annexation, or what does it mean?
So yet again, any lands can ask annexation if 100% of the property owners want to do that through the 670 annexation property, or through the 670 annexation process rather. What it really means is that if those lands were to be annexed into the City of Reno, because they don't have a current City of Reno land use on them, it would have to be translated to a City of Reno land use, which would then have to come for a conformance review.
We deal with that fairly often, I would say, but would we have to change the sphere of influence first so that they could be annexed in?
No, so that land is within the City of Reno sphere of influence, but the interlocal agreement doesn't cover it. So it's in the sphere, but
Okay.
doesn't have Reno land uses.
Okay, I
So if it was
understand.
annexed, it would have to come into Reno land uses, which would come for a conformance review
Okay.
to the Regional Planning Commission.
And where is it on this map?
So in the southeast, if you see the purple hashed area there,
Okay, just below the aqua?
correct. Yep, that is the area not covered by the ETJ.
Okay. All right, thanks.
Ms. Breckus.
Yeah, so couple thoughts that are maybe different is the ETJ is really related to lands that are not going to be annexed, and it's, at point of annexation, it's really more how to who's going to administer the development requests and applications.
Right.
So I think that hatched area, and I was city staff when the ETJ was executed with Washoe County. I think it was contemplating that maybe there were some developments there already, some large lot acreage homes, that might be the Thole Road area. And so because they're already built, we're going to permit, those homes and so on through Washoe County. I'd be really interested to see a satellite overlay of that development. I could be wrong, because the Dolan, anyway, another little exception is for the large ones in 2011 that you call City of Reno Tier 1 annexations. Well, the Tier 1 land uses didn't come into concept in our nomenclature on the regional plan until after the 2011, because this is the second plan update that we've had the tier lands, correct?
This is the 2019 update was the first plan that had the tiering, but I think it's referring to tiering in the program of annexation for Reno.
Correct, yeah, so the old City of Reno program of annexation that is now expired identified two kind of tiers of level of annexations for the city. So they annexed all of what they had called the Tier 1.
Okay,
lands.
so the way that I understand it is that 2011, I thought was the Cold Springs annexation, although that could be the very large one up called North Valleys on 2016.
Correct, yeah.
Yeah, because the Cold Springs, which brought in Stonegate, and wrapped around far up there, made 2 trips to the Nevada Supreme Court, one on procedure, one on annexation mechanics, and then it didn't actually annex until 2016. But the more important thing is, a couple takeaways for me to, I think, inform further discussion for everyone is, one, Reno and Sparks, just by pure volume of land added, are operating very differently in terms of annexations. So I don't know if anyone can argue differently, but that's how I see it. 0.4% of your land area versus 5% of your land area. That's a magnitude. 2 is, I think that the 670s are really where the game is at. And if you draw the Reno annexations into different areas, you've had a little bit marching up a bunch above Damani Ranch. That's fairly recent. You have a heck of a lot going up to the North Valleys into Cold Springs, and you got a fair amount out in Verdi. So, is it working? Is it good or is it not? I would say from all the infrastructure deficiencies I see out there, the encumbrances to develop this land, that, when you're annexing premature and you don't have the rest to go with it, you got problems, and we have problems. So that's what I see. So I think premature annexations have been a tremendous problem in this region, and speculative, and, how do you move forward with that? And it would be interesting to see a further diagnostic of this, because you have a number of annexations that have been feathering out boundaries. And those may be 670s, but they're feathering out boundaries. This parcel here, like if you see the St. Galena, the hospital one, St. Mary's at Galena, that was more or less something connected to what was the Redfield campus out there. So it's feathering out, the university one, or the Board of Regents, that was 104. That was off Clean Water Way, where we have now mega Dermody warehouses. You could say that was infill, was on the path, but, it's also tremendously, risky land, and we'll see how that plays out. So I think that's informing. And then, going forward, I would say a few, ways to go is, one, we're moving into a 24 update. Will that really be a 25 or 26 update? I don't know. Seems like we're still working on things that we didn't get on the last update, and I think the discussion should be that these are all part of the 24 update. And what to do in the interim when Reno wants to update, or someone wants to do a 670. I think any 670 annexation is a push for development that takes away from, older needs, infrastructure needs, and even, some of these that are in competition with it. So I think that's kind of moving forward, but I think you need to, I don't know how you want to go. Ranchera, 9.2 acres. That's feathering out boundaries. But there's some massive ones here that came in that are highly problematic, like the Cold Springs. I think the Dolans are pressuring a lot. And then, of course, out in Verdi. That's just my thing. I think this body should hold the jurisdictions responsible for annexation programs that marry up to their infrastructure ability. So if you want to bring a 670 through, maybe there's an extra burden, or maybe this body passes a rule that says we're not seeing any more 670s, until we get the update and you do your program. You either do your program in the 24 or you don't do it. Because these are always pressure points, big lobby jobs by, someone who options some land. That's what they are. And that's not necessarily in the community's interest. In fact, I think it hurts the communities when it's developer-driven annexations and not community foundation of how we want our regional form to go. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I know this was a lot to say.
Anyone else? Ms. Stewart?
Yeah, just an observation. I mean, what you're saying, Jeremy, since these plans of annexation have expired, we essentially don't really have a plan of annexation. I mean, all we do have is developer proposals for annexation.
Or owner initiated, correct? It
Owner.
could already be built as well.
Right. Although, are there a lot of those? I mean,
Not to my
where
knowledge.
something's
but
built and then they go, oh, we want to come in.
certainly can happen.
Yeah. But I guess I'm wondering, it sort of makes the whole plan of annexation concept moot. I mean, what role is it providing? And should it, do other communities have them? I mean, not right here, Reno Sparks, but what's its role? And do you have some opinions about this? I mean, what the role of a plan of annexation, what do they do down south? Do they have plans of annexation?
You know, I didn't look down south yet, so I can't speak to that. But I do think that the program of annexation is the right tool to use when a city has a plan to bring in land. If it's city initiated, that is the tool. And my understanding from the staff perspective at any rate is that at this time, the two cities aren't thinking about city initiated annexations. And so that's why there is no program. And in fact, the programs that did exist, what we noticed was that not all of the indicated properties were annexed. And so those actually didn't, I think it's nice to have the roadmap to understand where things are headed. And I think that's where we're trying to get to with sphere of influence. But at this moment, my understanding is that neither city wants to actually indicate where they want to annex.
So maybe we don't have an opinion at a city level, like we just go with the flow? And I guess I'm wondering, are we missing a beat or a bet here in terms of having some direction towards where we'd like to see development occur? Is that what we're missing here?
I feel like it's an important concept that we are trying to address with the public infrastructure plan and provide that foundation of data and information about public infrastructure and services.
You have that on our agenda later.
We do, yeah.
And I guess I'm wondering, like, I don't want to ask that question really, but does any of this matter? I mean, if we have a plan of infrastructure, but the annexation doesn't match up, and who's doing this infrastructure plan? I mean, are we the body that's supposed to be worrying about all that?
I mean, I believe we should have a regional understanding of infrastructure and service provision and planning for that. And I think that's going to be the crux of how we determine how to adjust this extent of the existing Reno SOI, which I think, if it follows along what we did with the city of Sparks, it's going to shrink a little bit based on areas that city of Reno working together. We can indicate that isn't planned for infrastructure, isn't an area that is, likely to be annexed and could be removed from the sphere.
So one more thing, if it shrinks and let's say they come back 5 or 10 years later, they would reapply to be annexed. Is that the idea?
That would be correct, yes.
Mr. Reese?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'll be brief. I suppose based on the comments by my colleagues and the presentation, which I thought was outstanding, it helped to explain a number of things. It seems that the issue is less about the annexation program or the review of it, because each city has already made their choices about how to use their staff resources to address that issue. Perhaps the real issue is, as Ms. Dewar has, I think, alluded to, which is the sphere of influence policies. Like, what are the policies related to that impact this body? Because at the end of the day, if there are no real burning desire of the cities to have a program of annexation, and I take it by the fact that they are expired, that is our position, then really it's both moot in the sense that Ms. Stewart characterized it as, but it's also unnecessary at this point. I am certainly not qualified at the level you are, Dr. Smith, to think about the heady issues involved with annexation and what they mean for a regional approach to planning. But I also believe well enough that each of the members of this body and their individual responsibilities as they go back to their homes bodies, I think addresses those needs comprehensively. And so to the extent that I would be providing direction, which is what the proposed motion is, I suppose my thought is that we're not, as a city of Reno, at least in my observation, itching to address something related to the program of annexation and can wait for the 2024 process to play out. I mean, that's very soon. In planning speak, it's tomorrow. And so I would be more interested, as this item is thought about by you all at your respective body, that we think more about how does what is happening in the sphere of influence impact what is going on. I will also say, we have, I think, I've seen a couple of annexation requests in the time that I've served on the city council, and we have one coming soon, which is very small, and so I don't see some of the urgency that perhaps some think there is, and so I can't really give direction beyond that. So I don't know what the motion being sought is, and so I'll leave my thoughts to the larger body.
Anyone else?
This body being focused in the arbitrator of annexations as a driver of, development demand and infrastructure demand is really important. You ask where other places do it. In California, they have special agencies for each county and so on that are formed. It's called Local Area Formation Commission. They really do look into the details of annexation. The question is, are you ready? And if you see at the very far top there, where the little dot is and the two meet of Reno, that's the terminus of the Stead Air Force Base, which came into the city of Reno in the 60s when it was decommissioned. It went into the city. And that touch spot right there, all in the blue, winding down into what Cold Springs, was a monumental development request that brought us Stonegate, because Stonegate's down where the 395 touches. And also there's two giant development projects up there owned by Bob Listner and Bill Thomas. They're called Silver Star and Evans Ranch. And that's about 8,000, 10,000 units. So those are annexed. They've got PUDs on it. They need the infrastructure. So when you go off to RTC and you decide where you're going to put roads, or you're over at, doing sewer work, on your different bodies, JCC or whatever, or you're doing at Tumwa, those are infrastructure demands our region has to face that come into competition with everything else. And maybe they're great, but if they don't go to the land use demands that, start at this body in terms of growth demand, then, you're just allowing people who get an option on land to hold on to it, to lobby to get their infrastructure there and then sell it to Toll Brothers. And that's what's going on. And, the fact that those have stood there for 20 years with no development is really not helpful to anyone, anywhere in this region. So, I've been critical that Lemon Valley Road of, 3 miles is going to be $40 million over to RTC or so, and the federal money came on it. That's just to serve Evans Ranch. And, why that? Because Reno annexed it prematurely and someone wants to sell that land to Toll Brothers. Those are the sort of problems, and that's a very specific case that I will offer under my observations. And, I think case studies are good. So I think the body should be no more annexations until you do a program of annexation and show where you want to feather out your boundaries.
Anyone else? Mr. Reese?
Sure, I'll offer my closing comments, and that is this. I don't see the world quite the same way as my colleague does from Ward 1 and the commissioner on this body. I don't view it all as a competition and where we're trying to best someone, and there's always this current of sort of conspiracy theory about who owns what. Having lived here my whole life, I have seen Reno grow from a fairly small community of maybe 80,000 people to now a region where we are somewhere in the neighborhood of 500,000 or hurtling headlong towards that goal. And the truth is that all cities are growing. All cities, unless they're dying, I suppose, is the opposite of that. And so as the cities of Reno and Sparks and as the county continue to move forward, some will say we should build nothing anywhere anymore, and we should basically exist in a moment of time and capture that moment of time for all time immemorial. That's just not realistic. And so I don't think that the decisions that we make at this body should artificially be constrained by some folks, sort of what I'll characterize as extreme NIMBYism. We are a dynamic region. There are lots of issues going on between our various bodies that require a thoughtful approach, and sort of just drawing lines in the sand about that, I do not think is the right way. I think each of our individual respective bodies are certainly capable of making good planning decisions as a body, and what this agenda item was asked for us to do was really think about that program of annexation and whether or not we require one. And my position is that we do not require one because our intention is not to annex. If we should have some period of time in the future where because of, say, the lands bill or some other change in dynamic which requires a more in-depth or different discussion, I'll be prepared to have it. So I appreciate, look, this is, again, I think an incredibly good presentation. And as Councilmember, or as my colleague, Ms. Stewart said, we do need to be tracking this and we do need to be aware of where things develop over time, and that history about place will be critical to the decision we make. But I think to assign more staff time either at this body or at the city of Reno are just unnecessary at this time. So again, appreciate it. Thanks for the opportunity to chat.
Ms. Turner.
Kathleen Taylor. Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's okay. Get it all the time.
I don't know why I said Turner. Taylor.
I will just make a quick comment because that's what we were asked to do. I have full faith and trust in our local governments, and I, for one, would not feel comfortable. And maybe it's because I'm one of the newest members asking other jurisdictions to do something outside the city of Reno. So I think that we have the city of Reno team does a great job, and I feel very comfortable working with them on what needs to be annexed and the sphere of influence, and look forward to what happens in 2024. So thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you. Anyone else? We have it. From Sparks' standpoint, the SOI, rolling those back for us made a lot of sense. If you guys haven't had a problem with an SOI and whose overlay is on it for a particular use, well, maybe say for group home. A group home in Sparks means something different than a group home in Washoe County. And I imagine it means something different in Reno. So it for us, rolling back the SOI made a lot of sense. I think that with that effort alone will help with some of the confusion for the future. I also agree, we haven't had these plans for 8 years and 7 years. Hasn't hindered us in the least in what we do. Will we need them in the future? Knock on wood, if what I've been approaching, trying to do for years, comes to fruition, yes, we will. But at this time, it's a tremendous amount of staff time at both the city, Reno, City of Sparks, and the regional planning, that I just don't know that it's as important to do anything about it at this time. Knowing what's out there, what's going on, and the future of the rollback of the SOI potentially for Reno, I think will solve a lot of ills in the future. But as we go forward and we need to implement this, the annexation plans again, I'd say, yeah, we'll get to it and get it done. But at this particular moment, it sounds like we're not being proactive, but at the same time, what are we really accomplishing? We would be just spending a lot of staff time to basically accomplish nothing. I would rather accomplish something in another area than to waste time for staffs on all fronts. So for me, if you're asking my opinion, would be to give no direction, and thank you for the report. So anyone else have a comment? If not, I'm looking for a motion.
Motion to accept the report? Is that correct?
This isn't public comment? No. I got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. You have your direction, but no direction.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Although keep
Chair Lawson?
tracking. I mean, I like
Yes.
that they're tracking as they
Tracking is a
go.
great idea.
Chair Lawson, can I get clarification who made the second on that motion? I did. You did? No, that's okay. And we also had no public comment as well.
Square now? Okay. Sorry.
It's all good.
All right, 6D, presentation, discussion, and possible adoption of the TMRPA budget for fiscal year 23-24. Jeremy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, Jeremy Smith for the record. I'll be taking us through this presentation. Let's see if the clicker works. Okay, great. So we're here to try to adopt our proposed budget for the next fiscal year. Just very briefly, some budget history. The budget, as we know, we've talked about this before, has fluctuated over time for the agency. We were cut, like many programs, during the Great Recession, and we've been working our way back up. We've tried to augment the budget with shared work programs with both the RTC, Regional Transportation Commission, and the Western Regional Water Commission. And we've had small increases to the jurisdictional allocations. The lion's share of our funding comes from, based on the membership on this board from the 3 jurisdictions. And so that's where we get most of our money. We did a 7% increase when I took over as interim director, and then we were able to hold the allocation static for 3 years. But then we came to where we are now. And in recognizing inflation, increasing costs for goods and services for the agency, and also to safeguard employee retention, as well as bring on an administrative assistant, so a new full-time position, we have coordinated with the city managers and county managers and the board leadership to ask for a 24% increase to the jurisdiction allocations, and all have agreed to provide that 24% increase. So that ends up being around $80,000 additional dollars from the city of Reno and $60,000 additional dollars from both City of Sparks and Washoe County. Those numbers are different for Reno because Reno has 4 members on the Regional Planning Governing Board, and that's based on the population of the city of Reno. So that will bring our jurisdiction allocation revenue aspect of the budget up to just over $1 million. In terms of what we're trying to achieve and actions going forward, knowing that this is the proposed budget, we have a couple of items that we want to address right now immediately in this current fiscal year. That would be a recruitment of the administrative assistant right away. It's going to take a little bit of time to get someone on board, and so we want to start off. And we've looked at the current budget, and we have the availability to get that going straight away. Likewise, we want to keep up with compensation for our employees, so we're suggesting a 2% cost of living adjustment immediately for staff that we would add to the rest of this fiscal year. And what that does is kind of help when we add, I'll show you the next assumption for next year, just gives it a little bit extra when we approach that. One thing, the next item that Chris Tolley is going to take us through is we'd like to have you guys direct us to go ahead and advertise a request for qualifications to bring a consultant on board to help with our public infrastructure plan. We are planning to use the monies that we've been, squirreling away or just keeping track of that came from the 2019 regional plan update. During that period, it did take several years to accomplish that update, and I believe it was 2017, 18, and 19, the agency received additional funds from the regular allocation to support the update. We ended up not spending all of that money at that time, and so we've kept those specific funds in a separate bin, and we've just been doling them out for very specific projects, which will lead us to the 2024 update. That's our annual report, a little bit there. Mainly, so far, we spent on the natural resources plan, but we want to use this additional $50,000 to throw towards someone to help us with public infrastructure, and Chris will talk more about exactly how we do that. But furthermore, we want to continue to work with Cardno, our natural resource consultant. Actually, they were absorbed by Stantec, so they're a much bigger company now. But we're still working with the same folks that we initially selected, so that's good. We're hoping to add $15,000 to that contract, which would bring the total for that to $65,000. And that $15,000 would get us, we did the data gathering phase. There's about $7,000 left. We're spending that to get ready for the search portal. We're taking all of the information that was found, and we're building this cool online portal, so we're going to use the rest of the money for that. But we're asking for $15,000 more to that contract to spend some of that money we kind of earmarked and get best practices for natural resource policy in a regional plan. So that's the idea there. So that would be for this current fiscal year. It's not a big deal if you can't read all these numbers. There's a lot here, but it's also in the packet. But this is our estimate to complete. So every time we do this, we look at what have we done so far for basically half of the fiscal year, and what do we predict we'll be doing for the rest of the fiscal year, and how does that work out? And so it looks like, if our assumptions are correct, we'll come in at about 99% of our projected revenue, and our spending will be about 96% of what we anticipated. So we're coming in a little under budget, which is always good. we started the year with a nice, healthy fund balance because we've been saving during COVID, but we're going to dig into that to accomplish these consultant tasks for really leading to the regional plan update. And just to sort of set the stage, I think I have a slide coming up, but we're planning in April to come back to this body to give you an item that is basically the kickoff, to ask for the kickoff, the regional plan update, exactly what is the schedule, how do these things come together, what's an update on the natural resources plan, also the public infrastructure plan, so you can really start to see how we're working these two major initiatives to that 2024 update. October of 2024 will be exactly 5 years, and that is our goal. We're very committed to not let it bleed over, so we're going to do our best. In terms of, so that was the current fiscal year. In terms of assumptions for next year, we're looking for that 24% increase that everyone agreed to, which is great. We're going to renew both of the shared work programs. So with the Regional Transportation Commission, they're going to be starting a regional transportation plan update. In those years, they tend to give us a little bit more money, and $75,000, I've talked to them. That's the plan for their contribution. We have looking to renew our shared services program with Western Regional Water Commission. That's been really a great collaboration so far. And up to $50,000 are available. I don't think we'll get there, but so I kind of estimated around $34,000 for that. And then there's always the potential for miscellaneous additional funds that come through. I think we slated that at around $10,000, and it just seems like every year there's something that we do and we make a little more money and we add it on there. So that's the revenue side. And then in terms of assumptions for the expenditure side, as I was mentioning, commencing the regional plan update. That's where we're going to be spending all those targeted dollars. Getting that completed in the next fiscal year. That will end in the end of June, right? Leading us to then going to October with all kinds of engagement with the public. I mean, we're going to engage all along the way, but making sure that we have vetted any of the ideas that we're planning to bring into that update in the 5-year mandated update cycle with the community and with stakeholders. Increase of 8% for Team RPA staff to the compensation levels in the next fiscal year. And then, of course, keeping up with inflation, as I mentioned, health insurance costs, potentially bookkeeping, the cost for our audit is going up, that kind of a thing. And then PERS had a really big increase as well, so we counted for that. So with that, we have the budget. In the end, we predict we will still have about $134,000, $135,000 in our fund balance. The goal really is to have about a 10% fund balance, so that we are ready to react if we had something like a legal or a lawsuit or something we had to address, or a big payout for staff that leave, or some big change in health insurance, or whatever unforeseen circumstance might come down the pike. So it looks good for that. And then we were also asked to do a 5-year forecast. And that's a really important concept, I think, of any budget setting, to see how sustainable is this budget we're building. And that's something I've heard over and over again from this board, that, Jeremy, figure out how to make the organization fiscally sustainable, right? And so that's what this 5-year thing attempts to do. And I built it with the 24% increase next year, 3% increase from the jurisdictions in the next 2 years, and then 2.5% increase in the next 2 years. Obviously, we're gonna every year, start in October, see how we're doing, vet that, and make sure that that's feasible, right? And the more we kind of save, or if we're judicious with our spending, maybe the smaller that ask needs to be. So we'll be very careful to keep those annual asks as low as possible. But in order to keep up with inflation and to keep going, for instance, our rent with the RTC, it's built into the lease that it goes up 3% every year. That's because costs go up, around 2 to 3% every year typically. So that's how this 5-year is built. And you'll notice in the very bottom row, there's some red and green numbers. That's looking at our fund balance. And basically, we're staying pretty even. We're not really adding or subtracting too much year over year if we stick with that. So that's really the goal. And I think this 24% really helps put us on the path to organizational stability. So I really appreciate the willingness of all of the jurisdictions to give us that nice shot in the arm.
Okay.
There it is, that.
Any questions? I'm not looking at you.
Exactly. Avoid eye contact. Actually, I just wanted to say thank you to my colleagues, Mayor Lawson and also Chair Hartung, because, of course, all of the issues about budgets are a cooperative and thoughtful undertaking, and the city managers also are deserving of thanks for that too, because as much as we know the needs are there, we also have to be respectful of each of our jurisdictions. And I just want to thank both of those fine gentleman for the iterative process that we went through in getting to that point. And so I know that it's not easy, especially because we've all got competing issues going on with our budgets, and some of the things that we are a bit out of our control related to PERS, that sort of thing, have made it challenging. And so, again, thanks to those two.
And just to echo that, I mean, we started off not real happy with each other and found common ground. And that's
Reveal nothing.
and that's as much as you're getting out of me. But the bottom line is we found common ground and we made it work. And I think it's good for the entire community and the regional planning. Anyone else? Ms. Breakfast?
I'll just add, when the update came through that got rid of the buckets that unincorporated Washoe County would do, I think that was a whittling away of a central theme of the regional plans that had built up over the years. And, of course, the county wanted it because I think they wanted to be able to, be on a path of being like a city, like Clark County was, like they were before Reno started doing 670 annexations with the Damani Ranch. That was the first 670 annexation. The entire planned Damani Ranch area came into the city as it should, although it was always planned by Washoe County. And it is a central planning tenet that if you moderate your unincorporated growth, you're doing a wise job. This is all over the country. Some places back east have a little different thing because they don't have cities, but in the West generally. So that reduced the workload, I think, on the staff. Second, if we're going to blow off the programs of annexation, which we have, and this last discussion set that forward, that reduces the workload on staff. So, I think keeping flat budgets, not building it up, but, the congratulations that we're doing well as a region and things are working. Check out the LA Times article today, okay? Because the LA Times article, it's good to get a view from outside. Took a look at this area of what's happened since Tesla tax break deal number 1, and as we all gear up for Tesla tax break number 2. It's not really a great regional forum that's working. It's a forum that is replicating the Inland Empire as a logistics center. It's one where housing affordability has gone off the rails. And it's one where I think there's a lot of community dissatisfaction in terms of equitable outcomes. And so, I think regional planning has really taken steps back as an organization. And I don't attribute that to any one individual. It's really a leadership decision. But I just want to call it for how I see it. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Taylor?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Jeremy, I have a quick question. I think it was your last slide in FY 26-27. That's the only year that we see maybe a dip. It's right around $3,000. And I was wondering if something happens there that I'm not sure I understand.
Hi, Jim, for the record. Great observation. That has to do with we have recurrent costs for things like OPEB valuation that hit every 2 years. And so I really took a look at the, kind of different costs by year, as well as I believe that year fell in a non-RTP year. And so it's about $4,000 minus in that 1 year, but it has to do with those recurrent costs that aren't hitting every year.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Yeah, and I think the wild card in all that is PERS. And as we saw, we got a 20-something% increase this year. What we have no say-so in. So those are things we have to deal with. All right, any other questions on the board? If not, I'm looking for a motion.
Well, I can venture one. This is the draft or final? Final. Okay, so I would move to approve the TMRPA budget for fiscal year 2023-2024.
Okay. Got a motion and a second by Herman. Any further discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Okay. On to item E, discussion of possible action regarding Public Infrastructure Plan, PIP request for qualifications, the RFQ.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have Regional Planner Chris Tolley is going to take us through this request.
Good afternoon, Regional Planning Governing Board members, Chris Hawley, Team RPA. So this item seeks approval of the Public Infrastructure Plan request for qualifications to secure consultant services. First, we'll start with a little background about the PIP introduction. The 2019 Truckee Meadows Regional Plan was adopted on October 10th, 2019. And as part of the update, regional planning staff, together with jurisdiction and entity staff, sought to continue increasing our regional understanding of public infrastructure across jurisdictional and entity boundaries. This was encapsulated in Policy PF3, creation of a public infrastructure plan, which was a new component to the regional plan at that time. Since the update finished, regional planning staff has been working towards combining the efforts surrounding the Truckee Meadows Annual Report and the Public Infrastructure Plan, or PIP, since these are highly related in terms of their data and annual requests. Finally, we are currently collecting all available and related capital improvement data and are now asking for public infrastructure data to support the PIP. Again, this is now part of the TMR ask process. So currently, Regional Plan Policy PF1 list of facilities and service standards provides region-wide infrastructure standards for water, wastewater, stormwater, and flood control and stormwater drainage management, transportation, and schools. The 5 topic areas are specifically listed in the Nevada Revised Statutes as those to be addressed in the regional plan. The PIP will describe each of these topic areas in greater depth, together with the challenges the region faces for each. We've included the draft goals for the PIP, but we'll be revisiting these with a future agenda item for the RPC and RPGB. I won't delve deeply into these, but generally they are to identify and create the PIP document, collecting and combining the existing and planned infrastructure data, and identifying updates to the 2019 Truckee Meadows Regional Plan to be included in the 2024 Regional Plan update process. Again, these are draft goals. And on to the RFQ. So the RFQ can be found on page 33 of the packet. The RFQ was stylized after the Natural Resources Plan RFQ, so this probably looks familiar. Key parts of the RFQ are the budget of $50,000, which Director Smith just addressed through the budget. And the objective and goals include creating an inventory of public infrastructure data, creating a public infrastructure map, and creating an inventory of capital improvement plan data. And then regarding the scope and tasks services, which potentially include providing background information on public infrastructure and capital improvement data, and helping us to build a regional perspective regarding CIPs. We plan to launch the RFQ on Monday, February 13th, and it has been planned to close on Monday, March 13th. The date needs to be adjusted in the actual RFQ that's in the packet. And then we think a month is a good time frame for the RFQ to be active. Finally, the map shown on the slide is from the regional plan update. It is a good example of what a public infrastructure representation could help visualize. The data reflected on this map doesn't relate to existing or planned infrastructure, but this is just to give an idea about one of the anticipated PIP products. And then the recommendations. The regional planning staff is recommending the RPGB discuss this item and provide staff with any feedback or suggestions regarding the RFQ, and to direct staff to issue the RFQ. Possible motion is listed on the slide and is provided in the packet on page 29. However, the version in the packet should state Public Infrastructure Plan and not Natural Resources Plan. So thank you, and this does conclude my presentation. Staff's available for questions.
Questions? Ms. Burkus.
Packet here, but, you know, I didn't support the 2019, I didn't vote to adopt the 2019 plan because I didn't want the hanging chads of the PIP and the Natural Resources Plan. And then, you know, COVID happened, but, you know, we can't use the world's volatility all the time as an excuse for things because we have to accept we're in a volatile world, whether it's the Great Recession or pandemic. But here we are moving into the 24 plan. And I guess, it'll be rolled in. So what's the thinking? Are you thinking the 24 plan is going to be as modest of an update as what was the one before, the 20? Yeah.
Chairman Smith, for the record, I think it's going to be less modest than the 2013, but 2019 represented an overhaul. And as we've discussed, we were behind. And so I feel like it was, we were able to create the public facility and services standards table. That's a big push. Every case we get now, we keep having to call back and talk to staff, be like, you need to give us this public infrastructure information at this master plan moment. That's a new thing that wasn't happening. And I feel like what we've been trying to do is now use that vehicle of that standards table as a policy, but then improve our process and really understand the data, where it is spatially, what are the capacities, what are we planning for, so that anytime we get a case, we can always analyze that case through the lens of that understanding. That's really what we're working toward and trying to, that's the public infrastructure side. From the natural resource side, we've already identified, I think, 3 to 4 policies that from the data gathering and our work that we're already targeting to add to the regional plan. We're hoping to get all of that ready to have that discussion this summer. So well in advance.
Yeah, and that's helpful, but here's my problem is, you're going out for an RFQ and you're also on the natural resources bringing in the data. But you haven't, to my level of understanding, explain, like you said, the process. How are you gonna do it? And to me, I think the avenue I would have thought or hoped we could go is a case study on a process. Make up an imaginary case that comes into you from Sparks or Reno or the county, and what you would like and how the thresholds of decision and evaluation would occur. Because we all know it's going to a vote of regional conformance. Those are the only tools that we have. At the end of the day, it's regional conformance. And to me, to understand that case study, the mechanics, you could plug in pseudo data for it, is really, I think, the best illustration to understand what we're getting out of this PIP and natural resources versus a whole bunch of more, this MG a day or whatever, So I don't know. I've been trying to be real patient with these hanging chads, of these 2 plans. And this far into the update, I feel that it hasn't progressed enough to show me mechanically what you're after to help you get somewhere. You're obviously getting to, analysis of regional conformance that you need to do on a case that Reno or Sparks brings through. But I'm not so much saying that the data needs to be the answer as it is mechanically, where are your thresholds and how will you, come down on those. So I'm still I'm struggling more than I have in the past. Maybe I haven't been as engaged, but I feel like that outline should be before the 2 bodies, if you're following.
Thank you. Yes, I believe I am. And so we do plan to bring that roadmap of how we're going to get to October 24 to the April meeting. And I think we can address exactly the kind of things you're talking about. In my approach, we identified the hanging chads, if you will, during the 19 update, and we knew that those areas were areas that we weren't going to be able to solve in the time frame that we were already behind on. But they have been the focus of our path to 2024. That's why we're engaged in these efforts to understand the data, understand the need, and each 5-year update of the regional plan, I don't think should be as substantive as what we did in 2019. That was a major overhaul. I mean, that really took a huge effort. And it doesn't necessarily need to be maybe as marginal as it was in 2013, although at the time that made sense. I think we're looking for real, foundation data and foundationally based policy upgrades for the 5-year update that we can point to. This is the work we've been doing along with our casework to lead us to why we want to change the policies in the plan. That's been the thought process.
Okay. Anyone else? Mr. Reese?
I'd be happy to move to direct staff to issue the RFQ for the public infrastructure plan consultant acquisition as it's identified in the staff report.
Got a motion and a second by Vanderwell. Any further discussion?
Yeah, I'm not going to support because I just think it's a RFQ for more data collection, but I am willing to sit with you and look at a couple conformance reviews to better understand from my behalf what you're seeing not coming through in information, and then how you'd use that. If there's one or two you want to sit down, case studies do work as a, to help understand, but I'm not going to support it this time. Thank you.
Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed.
The motion carries with one dissent. Okay, let's move on to reports. Washoe County School District, Ms. Smith.
There we go. We got the light now. I am very glad to be back here in person, so it's nice to be with everyone. Wanted to share that the Debbie Smith CTE Academy is coming along very well. I anticipate a potential vote in early March to formally proceed with the project. We've taken a phased approach while we reworked some things based on current costs and inflation, and so that should be coming to our body in early March. Also, the facilities modernization plan. That is coming up. That is going to be a very exciting roadmap for education in our county and in both the cities. There's been a huge amount of work done with this. I know some of you have taken the time to meet with our capital protection group to talk about the vision of schools in our community and the facilities modernization plan when it is delivered. And for the record, I have not seen it. We don't get to see it early. Is really going to reflect a roadmap for what education looks like for all of our children. That's established neighborhoods and then also our new growth areas as well. And we are lucky enough to be able to do this thanks to the funding behind WC1. And so when that does become public, it'll be an ongoing discussion. There's been a lot of community engagement. And I can also tell you that our facilities team rewatched and paid very close attention to a lot of the feedback that's come from this group as well about community schools that were built at different times. And I want you to know that a lot of that feedback will be reflected. So when we do actually come out and start sharing that information publicly, anyone who is on this body, if you're also interested in your own presentation on the findings, please let me know, or please let our facilities team know. That will all be up for vote. It's an ongoing process, but we very much want to hear from you as well. So we really look forward to that. And then finally, but not least, I am very pleased to share that the body did vote, the school board, and you get to keep me for another year. So I look forward to continuing on with the governing board as well. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much. All right, members and directors report. Mr. You got anything?
I can keep it very brief. I just want to say thank you for the discussion today. I appreciate all of the communication. It helps us go in the right direction where we need to go. So thank you very much for that. Like I say, we will be bringing back an item in April that will give us a really clear roadmap to how we're going to get to 2024, what we're planning to do. We're still working on projects of regional significance. That's at the RPC level now. And we're in the process of doing some analysis around traffic at different school locations to try to really, again, have a reason to say this is the threshold for PRS for charter or private schools. And finally, we are engaged with what's going on at the legislature, and we'll plan to bring you back an update for that as well. So with that, thank you very much.
Okay, legal counsel,
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Jessica Prunty for the record. Nothing to report.
your report. All right, board comments. Any board comments or requests for future agenda items? I'm just going to ask for future agenda items. If you bring them back to the board first, we'll take a vote to hear that item later. But we don't. I don't want to get staff wrapped up in a bunch of time that may not be necessary. So I appreciate that. With that, Mr. Clerk, do we have any public comment?
There's no public comment, and friendly reminder, our next meeting also will be here in April.
All right, April the 13th, Thursday the 13th, thank goodness, not a Friday. Any written correspondence?
We had one email that came through. We've created a written correspondence web page. I'll send that out for the meeting so you guys can read the comment.
So that'll be in the record for future.
Yes.
Okay, with that, we're on to number 11. We're adjourned.